Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is June 13th, 2023, and let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So let's get to the presentation first, and I'll go over the map. So let's discuss first Zaporizhzhia. Again, this is the hottest front. This is where the Ukrainians are getting good, successful pushes. And first, let's go to the west axis, so around the area of Velika Novosilka. The Ukrainians yet again have confirmed to have taken two settlements, including Makarivka and Novodarivka. So now the current fighting is around Urozhaine and Staromayorske, as you can see here. So this is the area in yellow. And also Novodarivka is right on the left of this map. So they're continuing to kind of pinch the Russians from both sides. And I have no doubt that this little settlement here will be taken by the Ukrainians very soon. So again, the Ukrainians are pushing around the river of Mokryale, and you can see that there's still a few settlements remaining downstream. So I think that the Ukrainians are going to continue pushing around this area and continue liberating the settlements by the river of Mokryale. And I think the Ukrainians are getting much more success out of this front because, as you can see on this Russian defense map, they have much less defenses here around Velika Novosilka compared to the Orikhiv front. As you can see, Tokmak and Polohe have very heavy defenses, trenches, dragon's teeth, etc. So it's much more difficult for the Ukrainians to crack this front, break through, because the Russians have been expecting and knew that the Ukrainians were considering pushing here for sure. Whereas here, as you can see as well, the Ukrainians are much higher in terms of what they currently have in territory compared to here. Or I should say, the Russians have much more territory here compared to what they have around Tokmak. So for them to lose this area is not as bad compared to if the Ukrainians were to have the same, successful breakthrough and just went to Tokmak. So for them, I think they bet more on building up defenses here than in the middle of Zaporizhzhia, around Velika Novosilka. And the last thing I wanted to mention is also which wouldn't surprise any of us, but there's reports of Russian blocking squads throughout Zaporizhzhia, given the order of shooting retreating Russian soldiers. So this gives a chain of Russian defenses shooting at their own. So the first line of defense knows that they can't retreat, the second line of defense knows they can't retreat, and this goes on and on and on. So overall, this plays into the Ukrainian success, because these Russian soldiers know that they can't retreat. So they have the feeling they're going to get encircled, or they just don't have the capacity to defend anymore. They're definitely going to give up and become prisoners of war, giving more loot to the Ukrainian soldiers and also a bigger exchange fund for the Ukrainian soldiers, because we know that there's obviously Ukrainian prisoners of war as well. So overall, I think that this is positive for the Ukrainians as well. Now, if we're going to look at the east axis, so the axis closer to the Dnieper River, so this is around the area of Orikhiv. So the Ukrainians have opened up two fronts, so one around the area of Stepove and one obviously closer to the town of Orikhiv. So the Ukrainians are still fighting around Robotine, so it's still contested as of today. And again, as I've indicated, why? It's because there's far more Russian defenses here, and you can see the density of population here is far higher compared to Velika Novosilka. So you have large cities including Tokmak, Molochansk, and a lot of villages around here. And in the upper region in the Russian occupied territory. So for the Ukrainians, it's a lot more difficult to break through. There's dragon's teeth, there's a lot of minefields, and so it's going to demand a lot more time for the Ukrainian forces to break through. And so the other thing that is also slowing the Ukrainian advance is, as you can see, the weather forecast for the next week is not looking that great. Until Wednesday, there's about 10 to 15 millimeters of rain expected, which is definitely going to slow down the Ukrainian advances, because again, it's going to get back to the muddy terrain, and mobility is going to be affected. And also on Saturday, as you can see, there's going to be some rain as well. So it's definitely going to play into the Ukrainian advancement. So here it's going to be much more longer until the Ukrainians are going to get to Tokmak. At a very minimum, a few weeks, if not a few months. So this counteroffensive is going to be in a few steps, and I think the first step is on this axis to get to Vasilivka, and on this axis to get to Tokmak. I think that would be the very first step for the Ukrainian soldiers, and then we're going to see probably pause on the Ukrainian side. If we look at the map as well, again, you can see that the reason why the Ukrainians are pushing around Vasilivka, I think the main reason is getting to Enerhodar, taking back control over this vital nuclear power plant. The Russians have proven themselves to be monkeys with grenades, and we're very uncertain as to what their game plan here is for Enerhodar. And so I think that the Ukrainians are motivated to go back to Enerhodar and taking back control over this nuclear power plant. Whereas around the Orikhiv area, it's to take back Tokmak and continue their push towards Melitopol, right? Vasilivka and Tokmak, and continuing their push around Melitopol and perhaps again towards Enerhodar. So the other thing, I've already covered Velika Novosilka, but the other thing is that the Ukrainians are also having some rather, decent success in the south of Bakhmut. So they're continuing their push in the area of Kurdyumivka and Klishivka. Again, is to take back everything that they've lost in the last few months from Wagner. And so far it's going well. I think that the defenses around Bakhmut are not as heavy compared to Zaporizhzhia. So I think the Ukrainians within the next few days, if not weeks, are going to be able to get to Klishivka, and that is going to be very good, because then they're going to get an easier route towards Opitne and all the other small villages in the south of Bakhmut, which is also going to impact, again, the Russian defenses here, and it's going to destabilize them. So overall, things are going well. It's steady progress, and I think that we're starting to see the reality of things. The Ukrainians are breaking through, but at a much smaller pace than everybody was expecting. And I think that it's good that now our expectations are we understand the pace of the Ukrainian gains right now. Now, if we go back to the presentation, the Ukrainian army is going to get another military aid package from the United States. It's been announced today. It is worth $325 million. That includes 15 Bradleys, 10 Strykers, some HIMARS missile systems, Stingers, and Javelins, including other parts necessary for all the new tech that Ukraine got. So I think it's going to give a nice boost for the Ukrainian counteroffensive, but Ukraine needs far more than this, and we all know it. 15 Bradleys is just not going to cut it. But overall, I commend this help, and I think Ukraine is definitely going to need more than this. The other thing that kind of piqued my attention is the Stingers, and I think that the reason why the United States is giving Stingers, and I think they've been giving them, but the Stingers are definitely going to be important, is because the Russians have also been flying a lot of helicopters in the Zaporizhzhia front as of late, and we've been seeing, unfortunately, videos of them hitting Ukrainian convoys at night with the Ka-52 helicopter being able to hit them from quite a long distance. So I think the Stingers are going to be good at shutting down these Russian helicopters. And today, I think yesterday, there was a report that one Ka-52 helicopter was shut down by the Ukrainian army in Zaporizhzhia. So these Stinger missiles are definitely going to play a good role at essentially stopping these helicopters from, attacking Ukrainian convoys in Zaporizhzhia. So overall, it's a great package, but Ukraine needs a far bigger one than this, for sure. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is Prigozhin's comments about this Ukrainian counteroffensive. So he officially confirms that this counteroffensive has started, and it's interesting that to note that Prigozhin, as of late, has been giving very realistic and level-headed comments on the actual situation on the ground, compared to the Russian MOD, Gerasimov, Shoigu, even Putin in today's conference. As you could see that they're so detached from reality and actually on what actually is happening on the front lines, right? Whereas Prigozhin, although he's a terrorist, he is giving quite realistic, quite a realistic analysis on what's going on. So let's hear what he has to say. So in a few words, what is happening? The following is happening. The Ukrainians began an offensive And I'm saying all as it is. With the offensive, they do everything competently. He's even giving credit to the Ukrainian army, which is very surprising. They're cutting off certain areas in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Meanwhile, they're covering their left flank, right for us, but left for them. Exactly where the battles are taking place now, Urozhaine and so on. So he confirms again that the Ukrainians right now in Velika Novosilka are fighting in Urozhaine. They're covering their left flank, and they managed to take, as of today, about 100 square kilometers. So he's even confirming the Ukrainian gains. In my calculations, it's even more. They're moving carefully, calmly. They lost a couple of Leopards and Bradleys. These are normal combat losses. So again, he confirms that what Ukrainian lost, which the Russian MOD is trying to spin as a fantastic victory, and that's it. Ukraine offensive is over because they've shut down, they've destroyed a couple Bradleys and one Leopard 2A6. And here we are with Prigozhin being level-headed. Very surprising again. I'm not saying this to promote them, but just because it's too early to celebrate. We need to mobilize, get together, and understand that they won't stop until they've either got beat or they get some sort of positive result. And we know that the Ukrainians are only going to stop when they liberate the entirety of Ukraine. For now, in my view, and according to the evaluation of the military on the ground, not enough is being done to counter the enemy. So my advice for Prigozhin is to stay away from windows, because with comments like that, it increases his risk tenfold to fall from a window in Russia. But again, it's very surprising that Prigozhin is saying things like that, because it's downright, it's rebuting what the Russian MOD is saying. And I think that definitely Prigozhin has aspirations to become Russia's next leader, because there's also been, I saw an article today which said that Russians have been Googling Prigozhin more than Putin, and that his popularity has been increasing since last month. So the Russian people are looking up to Prigozhin because he's giving very realistic assessments on the Ukrainian, offensive and what's going on in Ukraine. And I think the Russian population is getting frustrated that they're not getting the reality, the real information. So I think that Prigozhin, with comments like that, is definitely trying to, to try to get a good following of Russian people who do generally care about what's going on. And we know that they only care because they want Russia to win. But yeah, that's the video for today, guys. If you guys enjoy my video, please subscribe to my channel. Again, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. We're getting close to 20,000 subscribers. So huge thank you again to Ukraine Matters. Georgie is a huge reason why I am able to make these videos and have a good following. So thank you to Georgie from Ukraine Matters. Please follow his channel if you haven't heard about him. He's a great YouTube commentator as well on the Ukrainian war against Russia. And yeah, thank you for your support, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.